Awards, which is absolutely one of the best things that this town council does. But I wanted to take the privilege of the chair during public comment to express what is my personal opinion. In the past week, regardless of how you voted or who you support, we have seen an expletive-laced tirade from an individual associated with the Cheshire Public Schools. A gentleman in front of Town Hall holding a sign that read, "Women are our property," and a handwritten lawn sign on Wallingford Road that reads, "Expletive you, we won." This kind of rhetoric has no place in our society and serves absolutely no purpose. Cheshire, we are better than this. America, we are better than this. I pray that we return to the civility that makes this town in this country a great place to live. Thank you for allowing me that. And with that, I am so happy to be able to turn the microphone over to our two chiefs, Police Chief Neil Dreif and Fire Chief Jack Kasner, for item 3A, Public Safety Life-Saving Awards. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to turn the floor over to the Deputy Chief, but I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity and recognizing the people that I'm so proud to lead. They deserve the credit. I don't want the credit, but we have a program that we're going to run through and let them come and visit you guys.
Welcome.
Thank you, Chief. I want to echo the sentiments by the Fire Chief and thank the Town Council for this opportunity. Want to acknowledge the police officers that were involved, as well as the Cheshire Police Department for their actions. Members of the Cheshire Fire Department, I've said to you privately, and I want to say to you publicly, how proud I am of all of you, and how proud I am to be a member of the Cheshire Fire Department. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Ford.
Captain, would you please lead the men up to the front of the room, please? This is a majority of who was on scene the night of the fire, and I want to acknowledge the 5 individuals that were responsible in the life-saving efforts led by Assistant Chief Peckman. The 5 of you, if you would please step forward. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for your bravery. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for all your support during the fire. Thank you very much. Gentlemen?
They probably want to go around the council and shake hands. Go shake your hands. Come around this way. Shake hands. We did not rehearse this, in case you didn't know. as they're returning to their position. Before I turn it over to Chief Drife, I just want to make a point that 2 humans, actually 4 humans and a dog are going to have a Thanksgiving this year because of the people standing in the back of this room. Chief Drife?
Good evening. I want to echo the words of Deputy Chief Ford. It's an incredible privilege to be a member of the public safety team in this community. Not only the fire department and the officers represented here tonight, but also the EMS folks who, usually when I'm standing up here, I wonder why we didn't ask them to come. But as I was on the way here, they passed me on the way to a call. But again, the men and women of the police department and the men and women of the fire department work together on this incident. It starts, as always, with a 911 call that's answered by a dispatcher. Unfortunately, he couldn't be with us tonight. And then from there, the teamwork really kind of rolls into place, as it does almost every day with incidents that turn out to be a lot more routine than this one. This was, as should be apparent to everybody, was the real deal. So from the police department's perspective, dispatcher Chris Corso, again, unfortunately could not be here tonight, but he was instrumental in the successful resolution of this incident and the life-saving aspects of it that were already mentioned by the fire chiefs. Without a good dispatcher, these things don't often come to a safe and successful resolution like this. I have 4 officers here who I would like to recognize tonight. 2 of them with letters of commendation. That would be Sergeant Tracy Gonzalez and Officer Lester Zimnock. Sergeant Gonzalez was the shift supervisor. She was in the building at the time when the first 911 call came in. She did a lot of stuff with this call, but the first thing she did was help out the one dispatcher that we had working with making sure that emergency services were rolling, making sure we had mutual aid coming, and then she responded out to the scene to supervise the scene. Officer Zimnock at one point was the only Cheshire police officer there, because Officer Zaskowitz, who you'll meet shortly, after being involved in one of the rescues, then jumped into the ambulance to drive it to the hospital so that the medics and EMS personnel could work one of the victims in the back of the ambulance. And Officer Caulfield, who you also meet, was relieved from duty after he had entered the burning structure, and we wanted to make sure that he was physically okay. So between the 2 of them, they were the supervisor and the officer at the scene comforting the victims. Officer Zimnock ultimately transported one of them to a motel afterwards. Again, it's a team effort when something like this happens. And again, I would like to recognize Sergeant Tracy Gonzalez with a letter of commendation, and also Officer Lester Zimnock with a letter of commendation. Kevin? So Officer Kevin Zaskowitz was the second officer on scene. When he arrived, he immediately responded over to where Officer Caulfield, after having already been inside the house, was attempting to rescue a second victim through a window. He had managed to attract her attention and get her over next to the window. The officer stayed with the victim, continuing the rescue efforts even as the victim lost consciousness. Ultimately, working with Officer Caulfield and personnel from the Cheshire Volunteer Fire Department, the second victim was rescued. The victim was transferred to the care of emergency medical personnel, and it was quickly determined that she was in grave condition due to prolonged exposure to heavy smoke. In the spirit of the teamwork routinely practiced by Cheshire first responders, Officer Zaskowitz drove the ambulance to St. Mary's Hospital, allowing EMS personnel to concentrate on treating the victim. Officer Zaskowitz, your actions are a credit to you as a law enforcement officer and to the Cheshire Police Department. You are hereby awarded the Cheshire Police Department's Chief Citation on this, the 12th day of November, 2024. Last and certainly not least, I'll read the entire citation here. On Friday, October 18th, 2024, Cheshire police officers were dispatched to Rockview Drive on the report of a residential structure fire. Multiple callers reported that 2 residents were trapped inside the burning home. The home was described as fully engulfed in flames and heavy black smoke. Upon arriving at the scene, Officer Ryan Caulfield confirmed that the house was on fire, with flames showing and heavy smoke. A resident told Officer Caulfield that his aunt was inside the home. Without regard for his own safety, Officer Caulfield entered the home and located the resident inside, leading her out to safety. Officer Caulfield then went to the outside rear of the home and was able to locate a second person inside. He was able to get the second person to come to a window and stay there where they could breathe more easily. Ultimately, with the assistance of Officers Zaskowitz and personnel from the Cheshire Volunteer Fire Department, the second victim was rescued. Officer Caulfield, your actions are a credit to you as a law enforcement officer and to the Cheshire Police Department. You are hereby awarded the Cheshire Police Department's Distinguished Service Medal on this, the 12th day of November, 2024.
I am absolutely thrilled that we have a crowd on hand to witness this, because it is just so incredibly important, the work that these men and women do on a day in and day out basis on behalf of all the residents of Cheshire. And we could not be more thankful or more proud of the work that you all do. So thank you. And with that, we'll go to the good news just keeps on coming. We are going to go to item 3B, which is the recognition of Michelle Picarillo for receiving the Laura T. Brown Career Achievement Award. And Michelle, I know how much you enjoy the spotlight and a packed room on top of it. So if you would, I will turn the microphone over to Sean Kimball, our town manager, but if you would come up to the podium.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, as you said, it's very appropriate on this evening to be recognizing Michelle for all the incredible work she does for our community, including the very event under recognition earlier this evening Michelle is an integral part of the social services fabric and safety net we have here in town to provide services to folks, particularly when they've gone through a crisis or immediately following a crisis. And I can think of no one more deserving of the Connecticut Youth Services Association Laura T. Brown Career Achievement Award. We are unbelievably fortunate to have Michelle as our Human Services Director here in town. She does so much that the community knows about, but there's so much more the community doesn't know about until they're needing of the services or they're aware of a friend or a family member who come into contact with the Human Services Department, spanning the entire lifespan of folks in their older years to folks in their younger years, as this Youth Service Bureau Award recognizes. Michelle truly does it all. She's an incredible member of our leadership team here in town. And I just want to read briefly from the recognition. Again, this is from the Connecticut Youth Services Association. They selected Michelle for this year's recipient of the Laura T. Brown Career Achievement Award. This award goes to those in the field who have 20 years of service or more with youth service bureaus, and that they've mastered many of the functions evidenced by one or more of the following, including creation of new and innovative programs, adapting existing programs into model programs, effective collaborations among service providers, increasing the YSB's budget, services, and/or volunteer pool, research into youth issues and service delivery models, advocacy for youth on the individual and on the systems level, and furthering the understanding of positive youth development and the role of youth service bureaus locally and among other YSBs and throughout the state. Michelle has truly done all of those things, and so she could not be a more deserving recipient, and we wanted to recognize her selection by the Connecticut Youth Service Association for this award. So congratulations, Michelle.
I'm a very awkward public speaker, but I do just want to say that I've worked in Cheshire for 26 years, and I've been on the board of directors of the Connecticut Youth Services Association for over 20 at this point, which means I interact with youth service bureaus across the state in all different communities, and I just feel very fortunate that I work in this community. I feel so supported by town leadership, including the town council and Arnett and Sean, and by the community. I feel like the whole community and its leadership really value what we do in the Human Services Department. It is not that case in all communities across the state. So I'm just very grateful. I appreciate the recognition tonight, and I'm very grateful to work here. Thank you.
Congratulations, Michelle. That is so well deserved. Item 3C on our agenda is the recognition of the registrars of voters, deputy registrars of voters, and poll workers. So at this time, I would ask Sylvia Nichols, Willie Hyde, and Sarah Nankin to come forward. Yeah, just stand at the podium for us. Yes. And I don't see Willie here, but Sylvia and Willie are our respective Republican and Democrat registrar of voters. Sarah is our deputy registrar. Last week, they concluded the monumental task of conducting early voting and carrying out a seamless election process. This was Sylvia and Willie's first election and everyone's first with early voting. Over 7,200 people voted early. if there are any of the, and I see and recognize some of them, if there are any of our poll workers in attendance tonight, would you please stand? If you're standing, please just kind of. We just wanted to recognize and applaud their efforts, and also to recognize and applaud all of our poll workers for their efforts. Thank you all for enduring this baptism under fire and for making the process as smooth as it could be. Your work is greatly appreciated. Thank you all.
If I may, I would like to just add one thing, and we couldn't have done
Absolutely.
it without the residents of Cheshire who were respectful of our job. Our job was simply to give every resident who wanted to vote, and vote accurately, count the votes accurately, be respectful of everybody's vote, make sure each one was handled with care. We did that, and one day we spent 22 and something hours from start to finish, and we can pretty much guarantee that the count was as perfect as it could have been. But without the grace and the patience of all the people who came to vote, who also were experiencing the early voting for the first time, we all learned together, and they were respectful, and there was no incident of any unpleasantness. So we were proud of the people of Cheshire, and the people in the town hall, Public Works, who rearranged the whole town hall. The people who worked in the town hall, whose days were totally disrupted, and who had to park across the street and around the corner because their parking spaces were taken up by voters. It couldn't have been done without all of those people, including us in this room. So we thank you for the recognition and for all of those people. So thank you.
I would just like to add my thanks as well to town manager's office, to the other departments in the town hall, to all the coworkers. I have lost count of how many elections I have been part of over the last 8 years, and this was by far the biggest undertaking we have ever had, and it went beautifully, in my opinion. And thank you to all of our poll workers who come back year after year after year, because I'm not really sure, but we love to have them. They're like family at this point, and we really couldn't put on an election without them. And I really appreciate all of you and everything that you do. And this was Willie and Sylvia's first election. They made it through 22 hours plus. The town hall is a really weird place at 2:30 a.m. I hope you never have to experience it, but we appreciate all of you, all of your support, and honestly, the recognition is kind of nice too. I like that. So thank you very much.
Well, it certainly is deserved, and please come up and receive the congratulations of the colleagues. And with that, I would like to have our new Chesprocott Health Director, Mr. Chuck Moats, come up to, and Mr. Moats, if you'd like to use the table in the middle, you can do so, or the podium on the right, whichever you prefer, sir, and the floor is yours to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the council, it's my pleasure to be here to meet you tonight. This is basically a social call. I must say I'm absolutely floored by the service that's been provided by your public safety officers, fire and police. They serve every day, good weather and bad, easy jobs and tough jobs, and they do it because that's what they want to do, okay? So I'm a new guy on the block, okay, the new kid in town, but actually it's my second trip, ladies and gentlemen. I was the first chief of environmental health starting in 1976 under Bill Quinn, who was just fresh out of Yale University with an MPH. He didn't know anything about environmental health, so we had to teach him everything, but he was a good student. Okay, I stayed for 10 and a half years. We installed over 2,000 septic systems, brand new, in Cheshire, Prospect, and Wilkett, and a like amount of 2,000 and more private water supply wells. We put every one of them on the computer at Yale University. I'm back here because I have a commitment to the town of Cheshire, the town of Wilkett, and the town of Prospect, okay? That's because I was here in the late 1970s and early 1980s that I was afforded the chance to study at Yale University. I have an undergraduate degree and a graduate degree in biology, pure science. I have an MPH degree with distinction from Yale University in School of Advanced Studies as a local health administrator. Okay, I've been doing this now for a long time. So I came back by invitation, okay, to help put things back on an even keel. It's been tough the past couple of years. I know, I understand, okay. And I think over the past couple of months, I've learned what it's like to work under difficult conditions. And so it's my turn to hopefully put a little more balance back into the system, okay? Return Cheshire, Prospect, and Wilkett to the front, okay, of being one of the best departments of public health, a health district in the state of Connecticut. Okay, we're short-staffed right now. We're in a kind of difficult situation for offices. That will be corrected, and thank you for getting it going, okay? We should be very comfortable and be able to improve the status of our staff, and we can start doing that. We've already started doing that, okay? We can improve and increase the programs and the services that we provide to the town of Cheshire, the town of Wilkett, the town of Prospect, on a partnership type of basis, okay? Mutual respect and support, okay? And this is what I'm going to do for you, with you, okay? I'm asking for a partnership.
We thank you, Mr. Moats. You certainly have that partnership in Cheshire, and having spoken with Mayor Bob and Mayor Tom, I know that they are 100% behind your efforts as well. So thank you for being here. It is a pleasure to meet you for the first time for me. But it's great to have you on board, and we look forward to the great things that you and your staff will be doing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as an offer to every member of the board of the council, okay, I work with an open door policy. Anybody who's a citizen can walk into my office and they can tell me what they think, what they feel like, and what they'd like to see done. I'll do my best to satisfy everybody. I know you don't satisfy everybody all the time, but I will do my very best on behalf of the people of the town of Cheshire. These are the people that we all serve, and that's my bottom line. Again, thank you for the opportunity, gentlemen and ladies, and I really do hope to work with you. I've already met the town manager. I've met Mr. Jinks. I was here before Mayor Bob first got elected, okay, and he's looking at 50 years, okay. I don't know, that man has some fantastic stamina. But I'm here, I'm yours. Thank you.
And please consider this an open invitation on behalf of the council for you to get on our agenda at any point you would like to do so as well. So
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will take advantage of that.
appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Moats.
Good evening, all.
And with that, we will turn the people's room over to the people. It is time for item 3E, public comment. Anyone interested in addressing the council may do so. Please just come up to the podium, state your name, your address, and please try to hold your comments to 3 minutes.
Hello there, folks. Hello, my name is Jim Block. I live at 60 Contour Drive in Cheshire. Lived here for 3 years. I know you're busy tonight. I saw on Channel 61, I think it was, about 3 weeks ago, a piece about the dogs that are quarantined that are held at Cheshire Animal Control. It was kind of a hit piece. It made it sound like conditions there were extremely bad. I was very upset to see that. I watched the council meetings. I watched the capital budget meetings. I knew a little bit about what was going on, and apparently it's bad there. So I put a call out to Mr. Kimball, who was very nice, called me back on a Friday late in the afternoon. The town I lived in New Jersey, they would have not done that. I spoke to him for a while, but he couldn't give me much information. A lot of this seems to be secretive. They can't tell because there are legal consequences, legal issues going on, so everybody says we can't talk about the dogs. I went back, watched the capital budget meeting. I did again from that Saturday you had, and it seems he couldn't confirm or deny that the pictures they showed were true. I assume if they were not true, he would have said, hey, those are fake pictures, but it looked pretty bad. The dogs apparently, I watched the capital budget meeting again for the 4th time, and I see people like Mr. Walsh, other people talked about the volunteers that are helping out. So I'm thinking, well, that's a good thing. At least it's not one person. I know Rob Erickson quit, and as far as I knew, it's just April taking care of 30 dogs. So I went and happened to see April on Contour Drive. I don't know her. I saw the truck, and I asked her if they have volunteers taking care of the dogs. She said, no, the dogs are still there. Volunteers cannot work with these dogs because they're evidence. And volunteers can't do anything. I have one lady who comes in and does the laundry, was her paraphrase what she said. So apparently there are no volunteers. Police Chief Dreyfus mentioned volunteers and the wonderful volunteers at the budget meeting, but I don't know if they exist. And so from my point of view, what I see, or what I surmise with the little information that can be given to me, is that there's 30 dogs sitting there that were not socialized at the capital budget meeting. The chief mentioned that these dogs, some of them were not going to get adopted. He was afraid a lot would get returned. They haven't been socialized with humans, and they haven't been housebroken. So I was wondering what's being done to socialize them with humans. I cannot believe that volunteers, or they can't hire a kennel hand or something, so when this does end, which I understand from Mr. Kimball is going to be very soon, or they expect will be very soon, somebody could take care of these dogs, give them some human interaction, something to maximize their chance of getting adopted and not ultimately euthanized. It seems that they've gone from an abusive situation to a neglectful situation, and I hope I'm wrong, but nobody can tell me that I'm not. It's November, they're still there. In March, they thought this would be resolved relatively quickly, yet they're still there. And animal control has this run outside. I know it's not ideal. I personally, except for the first year I lived here, I've never seen a dog out in that run. Now, it doesn't mean it didn't happen, but I lived there, I passed there all the time. On my bike, occasionally running, I've never seen a dog outside. So I asked, can any of you take care of 30 dogs? I believe it's just April taking care of 30 dogs and chasing the beagles around Cheshire and whatever else, other responsibilities. Lastly, I understand 2 dogs were euthanized that were in that group for whatever reason. I was given by somebody who had some knowledge of this, a bill to the Cheshire Police Department for $525 from Yukon for a necropsy on the dog. Of course, they don't tell you what happened with the dog. So apparently the dog Tiny, a dog Lily, had to be euthanized, allegedly. So I'm basically, without making your evening longer, I'm just asking the council people to ask the questions that I can't really legally get answers to, find out what's being done with these dogs, what can be done immediately to maybe get volunteers or a kennel hand, he doesn't have to be an ACO, to try and put their best foot forward, best paw forward, so that they can be adopted and come to good circumstances. And that's about it. I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Block.
Hello, my name is Alex Perdian. I live at 278 South Rolling Acres. One of the things I wanted to talk about, which is what he ended up referencing in his discussion, was the dog issue on South Rolling Acres. Figured, got the news here, whatnot, why not? It's been a problem since March. From what I understand, there is a bark log going on, and there is some steps being taken to be able to take care of the issue. However, really, it's been since March, and just the past couple of days, when I went out to go to my car to grab the smoke, I've seen the dogs barking right in my lawn when they belong like 4 or 5 houses down, And, not only that, but they are really a nuisance and are destructive to other people's property as well. One of the other things I wanted to bring up real quick today was I've recently been getting into walking long distances, and yeah, you go down a linear trail on the Farmington Canal thing. You have quite a bit of distance, but if it gets dark, you have to walk back down Route 10 or something like that, and there really isn't good sidewalks from between where the Gulf gas station is on Route 10 to 322, and it can be quite dangerous to walk back, especially in the dark. And I was thinking maybe you guys could approve for lighting down linear trail for in between maybe Route 70 to 322, or maybe approve something for putting in sidewalks for just a safety of travel type of deal. I just figured I would bring that up.
Hi, my name is Lori Barnes, and I live at 532 East Johnson Avenue. I'm sorry, I have a little bit of a throat thing, so excuse me. I wanted to discuss the dogs at the dog pound, at the Cheshire Pound. I'm aware of all the legalities. I've actually had a lot of correspondence with April. I've been aware of it over a year. I've brought blankets, I brought donations. I know some of you are uninterested in me talking right now, so I apologize. I'll be as brief as I can. I've offered my services to come and socialize with these dogs, to help take care of them. I don't understand how we are calling living things evidence. And I understand that the case has gone on, but they're living creatures, and they're living in cages on top of each other, unsocialized. I specifically asked our animal control officer numerous times, no, when I have time. I don't have time, and she works really, really hard. I'm not taking that away from her. But you have a lot of people that would come and help. I don't understand why we're calling them evidence, pieces of paper. So I'm gonna go back to your sentiment about the signs all over town. We need to do better, Cheshire. We need to do better. They're living creatures. They're in cages. They're in cages, like on top of each other. Several of them had to be euthanized in our town's care, but I don't even know how many of them are even gonna live, and it's just not fair. It may sound silly to some of you, but it's not right. They're not evidence, they're dogs. And I know this other thing is like a real push button because of the politics and everything, but that video, whatever's going around, I don't want to judge anyone, but I have a family member that has to come here into that school system next year from the UK. I can't unsee the video, guys and ladies and gentlemen. I can't unsee it, and I can't walk into that school. I'm literally shaking. I can't walk into that school and hand my kid off to that person. So I don't want to judge anybody. Everybody has their own ways of dealing with things, their own ways they look at things, but you really can't unsee that. So again, that's it. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Barnes.
Good evening, Town Council. My name's Amy Borden. I live at 35 Pear Lane in Cheshire. And tonight, I hesitate to even say my address for what I'm going to address in this room. Parlaying off of what Lori Barnes said about the video, there has not been one person from the Republican Party or the Democrat Party in Cheshire that has made a statement apologizing to us. We are the targets. Our lives have been targeted by an individual that cashes a paycheck from the town of Cheshire every week. Okay? Her name is Annie Dunleavy. She specifically threatened the lives of Republican voters, independent voters, anybody that voted for Trump. Claimed she knows who we are, she remembers us. I believe I'm probably at the top of that list because I have volunteered on the Trump campaign for nearly 10 years. And it's very well known in this community that I have volunteered on that campaign and that I have volunteered as a Republican in this town. It's not only embarrassing that the whole world is watching this, but there hasn't been a statement put out by this town condemning what she said. And also making sure that the voters of this state understand that not a single right that we had the day before the election has been revoked. Not a single right in Connecticut. We are an abortion destination for people that want to come here for women's rights and have abortions, okay? So aside from the politicians and the political rhetoric that's going on, people talk about bringing down the temperature. I think we could start by having some town officials, some elected officials, but on both sides of the aisle, condemning what this person said and assuring public safety, which is the color of what I came here under today, is public safety. It's a shame that I had people calling me and telling me that I should not go out in public with a Trump hat on, that I should remove my Trump bumper sticker, I should contact the authorities, which I did. And when I called the Cheshire Police Department, it appears that I was the first citizen in this town or state to contact the Cheshire Police Department. This video was spread so widely that it has made international news. So I don't buy that the people that sit in seats of governance in this town did not see the video. I don't believe that superintendent acted quickly enough. He was supposedly made aware of this video on Friday and failed to act until Monday morning. And it's my belief that she showed up to work and was sent home. She should never have been allowed to step foot on Cheshire Public School property before being investigated, both by law enforcement and the administration. So my conclusion of what I want to say today, we just gave out all these awards. What would have happened if somebody didn't share that video? And now that person is being condemned instead of the person who made the video. What if one of the group of the members of the Snapchat group did not save that video and put it out there for the public to see so that the public would be aware that there is this target by her specifically to a political party and members of the electorate that voted for Donald Trump? What if something had happened? I think it's a shame that we used to live in a society where if you saw something, you say something, and now we can't get anything accomplished. We can't even report a death threat. We can't save dogs in a kennel because of transparency issues, and nobody wants to make a statement, and nobody wants to take a stand. I hope that the next time something like this happens, and there probably will be a next time if it isn't addressed swiftly and she isn't removed or resigned, it probably will end in a legal battle, if that's the case. But we're willing to take that fight on because we're not going to be living in our own community in fear and have our elected officials not say a thing about it.
Thank you, Ms. Borden. Anyone else that would like to address the council? Seeing none, we will move on in our agenda. Brings us to item 4, the approval of minutes, the minutes of the October 8th regular town council meeting, minutes of the October 17th special town council meeting, and the minutes of the October 22nd special town council meeting. I will accept a motion. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Thank you, Mr. Jinks. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously by those present. Brings us to item number 5, the consent calendar. Mr. Jinks. There may not have been one in the packet. So, Mr. Jinks' motion will be to approve the consent calendar items A through Q for November 12th, 2024. So moved by Mr. Jinks and seconded by Mr. Velaber. All those in favor, please signify. Motion passes unanimously by those present. Brings us to item 6, items removed from the consent calendar. There are none. Brings us to item 7, old business, and we're down to only one old business item. We've removed Bartlam South now that it is substantially complete, but we still have Mr. Richard Gussenberg to discuss the school building construction update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It'll be a little while before we remove this one.
Yes. You're going to be a regular for a while,
For a
Mr.
while,
Gussenberg.
for a while. We have a lot of good news. First of all, the north end, or the Phase 1 work that was done at the north end and at Norton School is nearly complete. The soil tests that were done at the north end have all come out perfect. The culvert at Norton has been installed, and they're just finishing up the drive into Norton, and then that project will be finished. We, on October 31st, Halloween, received 2 letters from the state of Connecticut approving our projects and allowing us to go out to bid. We immediately went out to bid. We have packages at the moment for site work, concrete, masonry, structural steel, millwork, roofing, windows, drywall, food service equipment, plumbing, electrical, and HVAC, all out. We held a pre-bid meeting on November 7th that was very well attended, went through both sites. The bid openings at this point are scheduled for the north end on November 26th and for Norton on December 4th. It's possible those will get pushed out a week or two due to the holidays and needs of some of the bidders. At the moment, the Next Generation School Business Committee is slated to approve bids on December 14th for both projects. And assuming all goes well, we're going to see construction started about January 10th. We have a groundbreaking scheduled for December 16th at this point. There's more detail that will be coming on that, and we've just set up a meeting to try to go through all the specifics and get that all laid out. We talked about pushing it off a little bit since construction wouldn't start for several weeks, but we felt let's get it in while it's still warm enough to be out there to do this. So everything is moving along very well. We did get the approvals from the state a couple of weeks later than we originally anticipated, but other than that, we're moving along about where we want to be.
Before I turn it over to my colleagues, so with that, and that kind of answers part of the question I had, which is everything is sticking within the timeline that your group created as the timeline for the overall project.
We're about 2 weeks behind at this point because of the state. Took longer up at the state to get approvals. Some of that was, well, it was all small items. For instance, the one that held us up more than anything else was due to what's called sole source materials. There are certain things like the fire alarm system and the security systems that we don't want to go out with multiple bids. Those are ones that we know what we have in the other buildings, and we want to make sure that we have the same thing in these schools that we have in the other buildings. So we go to the state and we say, these several items, we don't want to go through the usual process of providing 3 manufacturers and allowing people to bid on any of those things. It held us up for a while. We applied for those sole source materials on August 16th. We got the letter on October 31st, and had gone back and forth on that. So there were some items like that, but now that we've got the approvals, we're off and running. So we're a couple of weeks behind what we originally planned. Should not, you know, we got a year and a half construction ahead of us, and so I don't see that as a problem.
And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleagues for any questions that they may have. Seeing none, I think, Mr. Gussenberg, you are good for another month.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
We'll see you in December.
All right.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm Mr. Mylone. I'm sorry. Oh, sure.
Oh, okay.
So Peter, I know Bartlem's not on the agenda, but we still have to finish the band shell, so I guess we'll get an update on that at appropriate time.
What we'll do, we talked about keeping it on or adding it in as necessary as a new business item, strictly dealing with that portion of Bartlett South that has not been completed, and as you mentioned, is basically the band shell area. Any updates that we have from our Veterans Committee would be included as separate agenda items. But thanks, John, for
No,
mentioning that.
the one thing I did want to mention, and Sean, you may have it on your report, I didn't read the report yet. I did walk it the other day, and it's absolutely beautiful. The contractor did a wonderful job. The design consultant did everything that we had asked them to do during the process. I couldn't have been more impressed with how it came out. One thing I did notice, a minor thing, was, and it's a little bit of a pet peeve, there's still a lot of sediment erosion control measures around the perimeter. I don't know if that's the contractor's responsibility to remove, but I'm hoping that that's going to be something that they're still responsible for, because that oftentimes gets ignored and then it gets overlooked and then it's there 5 years later, and that's would be problematic. So it's the only thing I saw that was at all left over to be done. So I just mentioned it.
Before you answer, can you just clarify, John? I didn't hear what you said. Okay. All
There's
right,
silt
thank you.
fence and silt
Yes.
bags and things around the
Yep.
perimeter, and sometimes contractors, they just don't get to that, and so I just want to make sure that's something we don't have to do with town forces, or somehow or another it doesn't get done, that's all.
Yeah, no, so that is included on the list. Weston and Sampson prepared it's roughly about a 6-page list of punch list items. They're working through some of them now. One of the first ones was erosion sediment controls, to confirm the contractor's going to go through and remove all of those. There's a bunch of other ones that I wouldn't have noticed, slight pitch requirements for ADA on a certain sidewalk areas that need to be touched up and fixed. But we accepted the substantial completion, knowing that they have to address all of those within a timely manner. And they were all deemed, acceptable for the purpose now that folks can use it, but they have to be addressed before we make any final payments on the property. And of course, as you said, and yes, I'll typically have going forward, and it's the first item in my town manager's report for later, I will have Bartlett Park, unless there's really not been anything to update, I'll be including that as the first item in my town manager's report going forward. But yes, to that point, it is open. It's fantastic. I encourage folks to go out and walk around it. But yes, the band shell is obviously a big item that will remain for the coming months that we're still waiting for.
And with that, we'll get into new business. Item A is the approval of bid waiver for the purchase of rescue airbags for the fire department. Ms. Allard.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 111224-2, whereas the Fire Department would like to purchase airbags from Paratech, and whereas the current airbags are over 20 years old and have been failing due to age, and whereas the equipment purchased must be a specific brand to match the larger system currently in use, and whereas the council finds it is in the best interest of the town that the Fire Department has functioning and updated airbags. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Council pursuant to Section 7(8)(c)(11) of the Town Charter approves a waiver of bid for the purchase of said equipment from the Fire Department gift account.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Ms. Allard, back to you for discussion.
So I guess as evidenced from earlier this evening, we see the importance of keeping our fire department well-equipped. This is a request for a bid waiver to purchase the airbags. Apparently, their expected life expectancy is about 15 years, and these are over 20. So we're fortunate to, I think we got our pennies worth with that. And apparently, replacing the equipment makes sense to get it from the same vendor, so that way it, can seamlessly work with the equipment that we currently have. So this is a request for bid waiver.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Mr. Kimball, anything you wanted to add?
Ms. Allard did a great job summarizing it, so I was there if needed, but no other comments needed.
Call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously by those present. Item B is the acceptance and appropriation of a $350,000 ARPA award administered by Connecticut DPH to be used for the construction of Chesprocott Health District offices. Ms. Pearson.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 111224-3. Be it resolved that the Town Council accepts and appropriates a $350,000 pass-through ARPA grant for Chesprocott Health District from the fiscal year 2024 to 2025 State Bond Commission via the Department of Public Health to be used for structural renovations to the town-owned building located at 1220 Waterbury Road. And be it further resolved that this funding shall be utilized and distributed to Chesprocott for installation or upgrades to the structure, including HVAC systems, elevators, fixed walls, bathrooms, flooring. And be it further resolved that the Chesprocott Health District or its agents will periodically submit payment requests with invoices and other relevant documents to the town for reimbursement from this funding.
We have a motion and a second for Mr. Jinks. Thank you. Discussion, Ms. Pearson, or actually, I'm going to toss this over to our town attorney, our stand-in town attorney this evening, Mr. D'Agostino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a Cliff Notes version. So the Health District is leasing space from the town for fit-up. Jeff D'Onofrio will be assisting with the contracts for procurement of the contractors doing the work. Chesprocott will hold all contracts, not the town. The contract will be between Chesprocott and the contractors, and there's a specific process by which Chesprocott will get paid. There'll be a verification process so that the town can make sure that the work is done. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the state giving us a generous grant to our health district. They desperately need it. It seems what they're doing at the old arts place is monumental, and it's higher than we had expected. The only thing I wish was that, this was money that was offered to our town, and I wished we could have had a better discussion to see where we could have used it that would have directly helped more taxpayers in this town. But since it is going to the health district, I do hope that it is used wisely and we can get our health department into their building as quick as possible and have it operating the way it should be. And Mr. Moats, I appreciate your comments earlier today. I think what you said and it gives us hope that things will improve. And I look forward to a year from now saying, look at our beautiful new health department and look at how well it's doing with your leadership. Thank you.
Ms. Allard and then Ms. Pearson.
So I guess I just have a question about disbursement of the funds. Are they going to be, forgive my ignorance, I'm assuming like a construction type of loan where they do a certain amount of work and then they get a portion of the disbursement? Or will it be one lump sum after certain, like all of the work is done? How will the disbursement?
I think that'll be set up on a contract-by-contract basis in terms of what's paid when and what amounts.
And I just also wanted to say for the record, it's my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, that the building itself is actually Cheshire property. So the ARPA funds are going to improve Cheshire Town property. It's not really going towards the Department of Public Health. Although, Mr. Moats, I'm really glad that you're here and on board. I'm really happy. I'm looking forward to be working with you, and I'm hoping that with these funds, we can build a facility that can make Chester successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. Ms. Pearson.
I was just going to say the same thing that Ms. Allard said, which is that the monies are going to be going to a facility that will benefit our community. It's a town-owned property, and again, I look forward to hearing your reports in the future and to seeing what occurs next week at Chester Hospital. Thank you for your service.
Any other questions from council members? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously by those present. Item number C is, item letter C, C is not a number. Approval of Connecticut DOT Master Municipal Agreement for Rights-of-Way Projects. Mr. Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 111224-4. Be it resolved that the Town Council hereby approves the Connecticut Department of Transportation Master Municipal Agreement for Rights-of-Way Projects. And be it further resolved that the Town Council authorizes Town Manager Sean M. Kimball to execute this agreement pursuant to the terms and conditions as presented in the approval by the Town Attorney as to form and function, as well as project authorizations letters, PALs, associated with this municipal agreement.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Thank you, Ms. Allard. Either Mr. Wolf or Mr. Kimball for kicking off discussion.
This is just another standard agreement between the town and the state, so that we don't have, so the state does not have to come back to us every single time for a right-of-way project. This is kind of a blanket to take care of all of that.
Sure. Yep, that's right. It's exactly right. And rather than creating a new agreement for every project, a master municipal agreement with DOT serves as a base agreement, and individual projects are handled via the PALs or project authorization letters. So basically, it's an agreement that establishes that we will have agreements for every right-of-way involved project going forward. And it just expedites the overall process, takes a fraction of the time to complete, as opposed to executing a new agreement for every project. So that's the request for tonight.
Questions? Seeing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously by those present. Item D is the approval of multimodal transportation plan, RFP. Back to you, Mr. Wolf.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 111224-5. Be it resolved that the Town Council hereby approves the RFP for developing a multimodal transportation plan as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Ms. Pearson, thank you. Back to you, Mr. Wolf, for discussion.
So this is a request for proposal for consultants to help us develop a comprehensive plan in the town to aid us in developing better routes for bikes and pedestrians, integrating it with traffic and with cars and traffic and our existing roads just to help people and cars move through our town better. This will be a huge help to how we go forward, planning. And I just want to thank Mr. Glidden for working through this. This version of it's great, and I hope to see some great proposals come through. Thank you.
Mr. Kimball, anything else, or?
No, I think, we discussed this at our last meeting on this topic. Mr. Glidden's here to answer any additional questions. We've incorporated the discussion that we had and also elements that were emailed previously. And I think it covers all of the bases with some of the added components that we've put in there. But again, open it up for any question or discussions. And again, Mr. Glidden is here to assist with that.
Questions? Mr. Sorry, Mr. Mylone.
I don't know. Mike, I did have a couple of minor suggestions, or I think it addresses what I was hoping we would accomplish, and I did a good job. But these are minor, but I thought I'd mention them to you because I think they're important. On page 6, you have 2 bullets on the bottom of the page. And where they sit, they seem disjointed from the other goals and objectives. So I would ask that, if it's okay with you, to move those 2 bullets and make those bullet number 3 and 4. So where they sit right now, it kind of just.
That's because I put track changes on to show you. I added those 2 sections.
Okay.
Pursuant to the comments by members of the council and
Okay.
also the comments that you emailed. So that's
Okay.
why they're kind of off.
Okay.
A little off on
Can
the,
we move them up in the bullet order so they're like bullet number 3 and 4? Is that all right with you?
yeah, that's fine.
And then the only other change is on the page 9, the project approach. I think the way that this RFP is set up, it doesn't really have a detailed scope of services. So I think the project approach, item A, should include a project overview and proposed scope of services as a first item, so that the consultants have to tell you what they intend to do and how they intend to do it and what their exact scope would be. And then the item B would be the breakdown of fees, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mylone. Ms. Pearson?
I just wanted to briefly thank you
for all of the changes. You clearly paid attention and listened to us, and we really appreciate your attention to detail in making those.
Thank you.
Jinx?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to kind of mark the moment that we're kind of embarking on this. It's an RFP, so we have a long way to go. But in 2015, when I first ran for public office, I ran for planning and zoning, and I talked about some of what we were discussing in this RFP and what we hope to be discussing going further. So for anybody out there, dreams do come true. It's only been 9 years, but it obviously, as the chief knows, he's been asking for a traffic study for about 100 years, and so we're finally delivering on that to some degree, I hope, with this work. Traffic and speeding and the relative kind of lawlessness on the roads, and how hard it is to get around town for transportation on a bike, and people want to walk in their neighborhoods and they can't do that safely. All these things are a real impact on people's quality of life in our town. They've been asking for us to do something about all these things for a long time. And they can't all happen overnight, but like I said, I just want to kind of mark the moment that we are embarking on this process, and the public will have a chance to participate, obviously, and it's a moment not to just kind of let slide by, in my opinion. So it's a good first step. So, and thank you, Mike, for all your work on this.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Jinx. No one ever said that government works quickly, and Chief Drive, you look outstanding for your age, by the way.
It wasn't quite 100.
Mr. Walsh?
Thank you. Just a quick question. The time frame for this whole project, because I'm sure the public is curious, because with all the development going on in the north end and with the number of apartments and everything that are coming to, things will be changing over the next 2 years in this community. So, I think I want to let the public know how this will work in terms, and let us know too, how this will work over the next 2 years, so that, we can get an accurate idea of what kind of traffic issues we are dealing with and will be dealing with.
So I think we kind of hit on it at the last meeting. This really is that first step. So this is going to open the conversation up. We're going to look at, maybe some pinch points, congestion issues, et cetera, connectivity issues that could be related to the development. And then, it's going to, this plan, at least what I'm envisioning, what I'm hoping, would give us kind of like the first stage of the roadmap on kind of addressing some of these issues. Because remember, some of these issues may be related to state roads, which is out of our jurisdiction. However, it at least gives us that ability to say, okay, we're aware of this, this, and this. These are the ones that we can control our destiny. The others, maybe not so much. However, there could be solutions we could suggest to the state. So like I said, it'll be phase one really of this. And it's going to be a public process. I know that, like Councilman Walsh is saying, how the development currently is like under construction. It's not built out yet. We've yet to see some of the impacts to some of those larger projects. But if you think of it in the sense of for example, the retail development that's in the North End, Whole Foods will be open a year from now. So you're gonna start seeing that impact a year from now, if there is an impact. So this process will take the better part of next year. So we'll be probably wrapping up as some of those headaches may be being brought to our attention that may be new, but we'll at least have a grapple on what's out there so we have a baseline to work with.
Right, and I'm glad you mentioned, because I think what a lot of people have to understand is we have a couple major state roads, and we have to try to work with the state in order to get a lot of that taken care of. They did a great job in paving Route 10, and I appreciate that getting done in a quick manner. But, going forward, we're gonna have to be working with them, and we have a whole West Main development thing going on. That's gonna be a whole nother project. So there's a lot going on in this town, and I think a lot of people are very concerned about the amount of traffic that all of these projects can and will generate. So I think it's a good first step. It might be phase one of 5 phases, who knows? So thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Velleber.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I thank you very much. And this is, I'm echoing the sentiments we've all had today. I mean, I think this is a great opportunity. Couple questions following up on something that Don had asked. And what you discussed with the future projects that are, I assume that obviously they're going to be, at least because of the known projects, that those will be factored into this study as well. I mean that's part of the, it's not just what we have now, but they're going to be, we know, because things like the North Ends there and even by the time they get to this, there may be more projects that are getting added to this thing. I assume that those will be factored into some of that as well.
I think what the good problem we have is that these projects have all gone through the approval process. They are in construction. So we have, for example, North End went through state permitting for traffic. They have an OSTA permit. There is a very detailed traffic study. There is the roadway improvements associated with that project, which have been completed at this point. So it's kind of a different situation than other communities where you have a large swath of development that may be just sitting in kind of the shelf waiting for it to pop out of the ground. We've already passed that kind of phase. So it will be an easier discussion on at least that, saying, well, this is what we know, what was approved. Here's the OSTA permits. Here's the transportation studies related to it. See if you can weave that into your study of the overall network.
Thank you, and I know and I appreciate the discussion we had at the last meeting, because I think it is very important that we factor in traffic into this discussion, primarily because although there may be the hope to have more other forms of transportation, which would be great opportunity for people to have. Cheshire has a traffic problem, when it comes to cars, and so that's really what we need to figure out is how we're going to address that issue as well as how it can factor into the other means that we're going to have. Because nobody ever says we have too many bicycles on the road, but they all say we have too many cars on that road. And that is leading to some of the other problems that, we have is side streets, overuse of side streets, speeding, and other, activities. So if we try to figure out some ways to utilize those roads better, I think that's going to be very important to not only just the traffic flow, but I think the quality of life in Cheshire, because there's not going to be fewer cars a year from now, and there's not going to, it's just going to get bigger, so, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Villeber. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously by those present. Brings us to item E, the approval of stipulated agreements for tax appeals. Mr. Jinks. Excellent. Thank you, Mr.
And just to
Milo. I
clarify, there are
appreciate
two
that.
resolutions here, and Mr. Milo's referring to the first one, so.
Oh, so there are two?
It should be treated as two separate resolutions.
Okay. So, yep, we'll do that, John, and then we will call you. Mr. Jinks, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved, the Town Council approves Resolution Number 111224-6A. Be it resolved, the Town Council hereby authorizes the execution of a tax appeal stipulated agreement by and between the Town of Cheshire and 138 Highland Avenue LLC for property located at 138 Highland Avenue. And be it further resolved that the Town Attorney is authorized and directed to execute on behalf of the town said agreement in the form and upon the terms and conditions as presented at this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Jinks, and thank you, Mr. Walsh, for the second. Mr. Jinks, discussion?
So we discussed this a little while ago in budget. It's it's a very kind of small difference between what we were otherwise going to receive. I'll have Sean kind of explain, or Jim can explain exactly why the assessors had that kind of difference initially, but.
Yeah, so there was, the original assessment did not utilize a income approach to this particular property, and I think that might have been a little bit of an oversight during the whole revaluation process. I don't know whether it got lost in the shuffle, but the appeal was appropriate. They did produce income documentation that warranted the adjustment. So I don't think there was any question. I know the town attorney, the reval company, and Chris, our assessor, were all in agreement that this particular approach was the most appropriate way to value this property. And so I think this adjustment was something that just needs to get done. I don't know if anybody has any other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Jescott. Further questions on this first item?
I would just add that the difference we're talking about is about $8,800, right? Is that correct?
Right.
Yes, so $8,000.
$8,018.
So it's very small.
With that, I'll call for a vote on this item. Please signify. Motion passes unanimously by those present and voting. Mr. Jinks, the second item for item E, the approval of stipulated agreements
Yeah,
for
do you wanna grab
tax
John?
appeals, and thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Ms. Talbot.
You didn't go too far.
I was going to say, hopefully he didn't go home.
Did you go home? Start heading out?
Not in the lobby.
Mr. Jinks, why don't you enter the item then into the motion into the record, and we'll continue, and we'll catch up Mr. Milone.
Okay. So be it resolved, the town council approves resolution number 111224-6B. Be it resolved, the town council hereby authorizes the execution of a tax appeal stipulated agreement by and between the town of Cheshire and Petro Cheshire LLC for the property located at 501 Maple Avenue. And be it further resolved that the town attorney is authorized and directed to execute on behalf of the town said agreement in the form and upon the terms and conditions as presented at this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Jinks. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Discussion, Mr. Jinks.
Yep, another really small difference between what we originally were going to receive and will not now receive, but I'll let Jim explain.
Yeah,
a little
just
bit more.
briefly, this one, the original full value was assessed at 1.4 million. We're bringing it down to 1.257. The applicant felt as though that the valuation, the original valuation was too high, and they were actually able to produce a assessment of 1.1 million. Again, the team, the attorney, the reval company and Chris got together, and we were able to negotiate something they felt was reasonable under the circumstances, and actually shot it back up a little bit higher from what that valuation came in at the 1.1. So they settled at 1.257. It's a reduction that resulted in a tax loss of about $2,800 per year.
So, Mr. Milone, we had a motion by Mr. Jinks, a second by Mr. Walsh. Mr. Jascott explained that the original assessment on this property was 1.4 million. It has been worked down to 1.257 million. The owner of the property was able to come up with a document that showed an assessed value of 1.1, and you are up to speed.
It was discussed, this one was discussed during our
Okay.
earlier meeting as well, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jascott. Any questions regarding this one? Seeing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously by those present. Brings us to item F, which is the town manager's performance review process. As you remember, we changed the timeline and the process for reviewing the town manager last year. So I just wanted to run down the steps in the process to refresh all of our memories. The town manager's self-assessment will be reviewed by the Personnel Committee. The survey vehicle will be finalized by the committee at their November 21st meeting and will then be sent to the full council. Once the surveys have been completed, the Personnel Committee will meet again to compile the results and recommend changes to the town manager's contract. Those will then be shared with the full council, and any changes will be voted on at the December regular meeting. Following that, in January, we will begin the process of setting the 2025 goals and objectives. Questions regarding the process for town manager's goals and review? With that, we'll move along to item G, which is the approval of 2025-29 agreement between the Cheshire Board of Education and the Education Association of Cheshire. Hopefully, you were all able to see the email that was sent earlier today. Due to the fact that there are a couple things that are still being worked out in this contract, I'm going to offer a motion to table until our December meeting. Seconded by Mr. Jinks. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We will see that again. Brings us to item H, the bond authorization in lieu of ARPA funding for the 422 North Brooksville property purchase. Mr. Jinks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 111224-8. Whereas at its meeting held on October 10, 2023, the Town Council approved an appropriation of $223,000 in American Rescue Plan Act funds for the purchase and remediation of property at 422 North Brooksville Road in Cheshire. And whereas in order to ensure compliance with the ARPA funds program and rules, the Town Council will rescind the $223,000 in ARPA funds. And whereas in order to finance the North Brooksville project, the town wishes to authorize the issuance of $223,000 in bonds and notes of the town. Therefore, be it resolved that the town of Cheshire appropriate $223,000 for costs related to the purchase of property at 422 North Brooksville Road in Cheshire. The appropriation may be spent for appraisal cost, inspection cost, recording cost, remediation cost, removal of materials, improvements and other related work to the property, consulting fees, legal costs, net interest on borrowings, and other financing costs and other expenses related to the project. The Town Council shall determine the scope and particulars of the project and may reduce or modify the project scope, and the entire appropriation may be expended on the project as so reduced or modified. That the town issue its bonds or notes in an amount not to exceed $223,000 to the project. The bonds or notes shall be issued pursuant to Section 7-369 of the General Statutes of Connecticut, revision of 1958 as amended, and any other enabling acts. The amount of bonds or notes authorized to be issued shall be reduced by the amount of grants received by the town for the project and not separately appropriated to pay additional project costs. The bonds or notes shall be general obligations of the town secured by the irrevocable pledge of the full faith and credit of the town. C, that the town issue and renew its temporary notes from time to time in anticipation of the receipt of the proceeds from the sale of the bonds or notes for the project or the receipt of grants for the project. The amount of the notes outstanding at any time shall not exceed $223,000. The note shall be issued pursuant to Section 7-378 of the General Statutes of Connecticut, revision of 1958 as amended. The note shall be general obligations of the town secured by the irrevocable pledge of the full faith and credit of the town. The town shall comply with the provision of Section 7-378A of the General Statutes if the notes do not mature within the time permitted by the said Section 7-378. D, the town manager and the treasurer of the town shall sign the bonds or notes by their manual or facsimile signatures. The law firm of Pullman and Comley LLC is designated as bond counsel to approve the legality of the bonds or notes. The town manager and the treasurer are authorized to determine the amount, dates, interest rates, maturities, redemption provisions, form, and other details of the bonds or notes. To designate one or more bank or trust companies to be a certifying bank, registrar, or transfer agent, and paying agent for the bonds or notes, to provide for the keeping of the record of the bonds or notes, to designate a municipal advisor to the town in connection with the sale of the bonds or notes, to sell the bonds or notes at public or private sale, to deliver the bonds or notes, and to perform all other acts which are necessary or appropriate to issue the bonds or notes. E, that the town hereby declares its official intent under federal income tax regulation section 1.150-2. The project cost may be paid from temporary advances of available funds, and that the town reasonably expects to reimburse any such advances from the proceeds of borrowings in an aggregate principal amount not in the excess of the amount of borrowing authorized above for the project. The town manager and the treasurer are authorized to amend such declaration of official intent as they deem necessary or advisable, and to bind the town pursuant to such representations, and covenants as they deem necessary or advisable in order to maintain the continued exemption from federal income taxation of interest in the bonds or notes authorized by this resolution if issued on a tax-exempt basis, including the covenants to pay rebates of investment earnings to the United States in future years. F, that the town manager and the treasurer are authorized to make representations and enter into written agreements for the benefit of holders of the bonds and notes to provide secondary market disclosure information, which agreements may include such terms as they deem advisable or appropriate in order to comply with the applicable laws or rules pertaining to the sale or purchase of such bonds or notes. G, that the town manager, the treasurer, the town council, the building committee, or committees as established from time to time by the town council for the project, and other proper officers of the town are authorized to take all other action which is necessary or desirable to complete the project, to apply for and accept grants for the project, and to issue bonds or notes to finance the aforesaid appropriation. That is it.
Really?
Sure there's nothing left, Mr. Jinks? We have a motion. Do we have a second? Ms. Pearson, thank you. Mr. Jaskett, I'm not sure there's anything
Yeah,
you can
so
add to that.
I didn't write that resolution, but thank you for fighting through it. And just short and sweet, I think we have some concerns. The ARPA deadline for spending and committing funds is December 31st. So this and the next couple of resolutions have to do with making sure that we're able to utilize all our ARPA funds and not return anything at some point. We did have some concern over this particular project because of the potential use down the road, whether the town retains ownership of the property in years to come. And the auditors, in passing it by them, had some concern or reservation that there might be some issues as to whether this would be an allowed expense if we went forth funding it with the ARPA funds. So to cover the cost, which we've already purchased the property, we were going to authorize bonds to fund it, but with the hope that, if there are some proceeds from a potential sale down the road, that we could use those funds instead. And that would negate this whole need to fund it with any bonds.
Questions? Mr. Walsh?
And just to clarify, I know there have been some items that were left at the house that are being sold off. Are we deducting any of that, or is that just going into the general fund, the money that we get from that stuff, or?
Yeah, we haven't been deducting any of that. I think right now it's just been general fund revenue.
Just curious if you're keeping a list, just so we know, like, whatever you got, and it just would help us, so.
Certainly, yeah. And as Mr. Jesscott said, I think in this case, maybe out of abundance of caution, while the expense was certainly eligible, the concern we have is should the council decide to sell 422 North Brooksville, could an argument be made that you've used ARPA money for something that you're now selling, and is that now the funds generated from the sale of property sort of effectively still ARPA funds, and now you're past the December deadline, and rather than enter into that issue, we have other ARPA funds that we, in the next resolution, has a catch-all to make sure that we've used every penny of ARPA funds as recommended by our auditors. The bond authorization allows us to have that project wrapped up from a funding source standpoint and not have to be concerned about that potential deadline past December 31st.
And regarding any potential future sale of 422 North Brooksville, Mr. Kimball, thank you for your catch on making sure that the property was indeed a sellable property. Any other questions from colleagues? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, motion passes unanimously. Brings us to item I, the ARPA grant allocations adjustments. We'll give Mr. Jinks a chance to catch his breath a little more and ask Ms. Pearson to do this one, please.
The shorter one. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution 1112249, whereas the deadline for obligating America Rescue Plan Act ARPA funds in December 31st, 2024. Local governments must obligate their funds by entering contracts, placing orders, or other transactions that require payment. If they don't, they must return any remaining funds to the U.S. Department of Treasury. Whereas it is anticipated that the town could have some unobligated residual balances in ARPA fund projects on December 31st, 2024, whereas the council approved ARPA-funded projects that exceeded the final ARPA distribution by approximately $1,600 in anticipation of reallocating residual project funds, therefore be it resolved that the town council approves increasing actual grant revenue realized in the fiscal year 2025 general fund, ARPA revenue appropriation for any ARPA-funded project balances that are not obligated by December 31st, 2024, and decreasing actual grant revenue to compensate for total approved project allocations that exceeded the town's final ARPA funding distribution by approximately $1,600.
Thank you, Ms. Pearson. Thank you, Mr. Jinks. Discussion, Mr. Jaskot.
So simply, this is kind of a catch-all to make sure that if we have any unexpended balances or uncommitted balances at December 31st, that we can roll those all into our general fund revenue. I don't know if you recall, we appropriated $1.3 million in our fiscal '25 general fund budget of ARPA funds. So I just want to, make sure, again, if we have, for various contracts, we've, the Bartlam Park, we've had the Arts Place leasehold improvements. There's a few balances that have not been paid. I'm not sure where those stand at this point, and I just want to make sure that December 31st rolls around, I want to be able to pull anything in that we haven't spent or committed into the general fund.
Questions? Mr. Velber.
Thank you. And that will protect these funds going forward, right? So that, so that would preserve them for future, for use.
Right, so they'll be used in the general fund revenue, as opposed to potentially having to remit them back to the U.S. Treasury.
Right, because obviously we're giving up to a couple $100,000 on the South Brooksville property that, we're gonna have to obviously.
Exactly.
Bring back in, if we want to use it, because otherwise, right now, we don't have another allocation for that. So this will allow it to come back into the general fund.
Correct.
And be used for future projects.
Right.
Yep, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Brings us to item J, the final item under new business. It is the call for a public hearing for reallocation of ARPA funding for pool enhancements. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 111224-10. Be it resolved that the Town Council shall hold a public hearing at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, December 10th, 2024, to consider the following proposed resolutions. Resolution reallocating $292,500 in American Rescue Plan Act ARPA funds from the Cheshire Community Pool Aquatics Enhancement Project to the development of Chapman/Bartlam Park South Project, and resolution appropriating $292,500 for Cheshire Community Pool aquatic enhancements, and authorizing the issue of $292,500 in bonds and notes to finance the appropriation. Be it further resolved that the town manager shall cause a notice of said public hearing to be posted and published according to law, and be it further resolved that the date, time, and place, or any postponements thereof, shall be determined by the town manager with the approval of the chairman of the council. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Walsh, thank you. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Brings us to item 9, the town manager report and communications. Mr. Kimball, the monthly status reports are in your packets, and I will turn it over to you for the town manager's report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And yes, thank you for pointing out, I would encourage folks to look through the monthly status reports. A lot of great photos, particularly from the economic development report of progress in the north end, but also various projects and properties being developed and improved around town and in the center of town. So some great improvements going on in town. So the November town manager's report, I'll start as I touched on earlier in the meeting about with the Bartlam Park South update. Construction fencing throughout the project has been removed last week. All of the newly expanded park areas are now open to the public for use. Site lighting in the parking lot and also the walking paths is all operational and on timers now. The band shell area remains fenced off. Weston Sampson's requested a foundation adjustment proposal from Dorita due to some slight changes in the final design dimensions of the band shell. So more to come on that. Relatively minor. It's about 4 feet of adjustment to the foundation area, but it needs to get settled with whether it moves forward 4 feet or back 4 feet, and there's a couple, we're trying to look for what the most cost-effective solution is there. But the band shell remains on track and under fabrication for a January, February completion of the fabrication to be delivered to the property. And we've scheduled the paving for the rest of Bartland Park through the capital appropriation approved by the council for the parking lots and access drives, including the pool lot for the spring. So trying to time that with the opening of the rest of the park with the completed band shell, hopefully at that time. Next item you'll see with a couple of photos there, as a reminder, our Mixville Park improvements project, including the expansion of the parking area, the paved portion with the drop-off area, the completed sidewalks, as the council is very familiar with from a number of months ago. But taking advantage of the season and some advantageous weather, Cheshire DPW has been working very hard on the new permanent seasonal ice rink at Mixville Park. You'll see a picture there of the oval-shaped concrete Cape Cod curb that forms the ring of the ice rink. It's 120 feet long, 80 feet wide. It consists of a lower level of gravel with fabric and then clay on top to hold the water. They're working on sod, and topsoil and sod is being added this week to the center area. So again, as you'll recall from the original plan, this is an area that could be flooded with a level of water sufficient for ice, again, weather dependent, but that would then be able to be drained out through the drain pipes that are associated with the project, in an area that becomes kind of a grassy circle area for other activities and things in the non-winter season. There will be lamps, as you'll see in the design there, benches. Some of that concrete work is going on right now, hopefully this week, again, weather dependent. But we're really excited about it, hoping it might be sort of a soft launch this winter and trying out, we're trying to manage expectations. We weren't anticipating having it ready for the winter, but we've been able to take advantage of some of this great weather recently, and especially the dry weather, because that's a very wet area. It made working with that area difficult, but this bit of a drought we've been going through has actually been advantageous for this particular project. And so we are kind of ahead of schedule where we thought, so hopefully we'll be able to at least test it and see how it works, weather dependent this winter. Some more to come, but very exciting. And if you get a chance to go out to Mixville, you can take a look at the progress. The guys at Public Works are doing a really fantastic job, and we're saving a lot of money by doing a lot of in-house work with that project, which is also great. Moving on, just a reminder, we're in the month of November and early December's curbside leaf collection. Leaves must be placed in curbside in biodegradable bags before 7 a.m. on Mondays. The week of November 4th is an entire town collection. You'll see there November 12th is the east side of Route 10. The 18th, the week of November 18th, is the west side of Route 10. On the November 25th, it's all back to the east side of Route 10. And then on December 2nd, all residences west of Route 10. And then on December 9th, the entire town passed through one more time. So again, also residents can bring leaves in biodegradable bags for disposal also at the Public Works Garage on Monday mornings from 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. On Mondays, November 18th through December 9th. Also very excited to announce that next week we should be launching our new town website. This is anticipated to launch next Tuesday, a week from today, November 19th. You'll see a picture there that I took from the current draft, non-public website at the moment. But this is going to be a wonderful feature. We have a new vendor that the council supported. Much more engagement for the public, including subscribing to meetings, events, job postings, and more, signing up for alert notifications, for town alerts, and virtual chatbot for improved searching, easier access to agendas and minutes, and the ability to create a website account sort of for more customization. So we're really excited to launch this next week. It's been a lot of hard work. Thank you to Noelle Shepherd, who's been leading the charge on that, and all of our departments getting trained and up to speed. We really think you're going to like it a lot, so we're excited to go live with this very soon. And just a few more. Excited to announce our new assistant town planner. Started last week, Monica Sims. Her first day was last Tuesday. She was most recently with the City of Meriden as their Director of Planning. She has previous work experience in planning and zoning with City of Bristol, towns of Wethersfield, Berlin, and Hamden. She has 32 years of experience, and she's going to be really a tremendous asset to the town. We're really excited to have been able to lure her here to Cheshire to join Mike Glidden and his team there. So welcome to Monica, and if you have a chance to introduce yourself, maybe we can bring her to a future meeting too as well, but very excited announcement.
Few Park and Rec updates. The Great Turkey Hunt will be on Thursday, November 21st. Be sure to register by 4 p.m. the day of the event. And the annual Bartlett Park Winterfest is taking place at Bartlett Park on Sunday, December 8th, beginning at 4 p.m. More information to come very soon, but mark your calendars. As you came into the building today, you probably saw some of the construction fencing going up around Town Hall. The long-awaited Town Hall roof replacement contract was awarded. Construction began really earlier today, yesterday actually. The duration of construction is expected to be about 4 weeks, weather dependent. The new roof is going to greatly enhance the aesthetic appeal of the Town Hall. The old one was much past its useful life, as you can tell by looking at it. And this new roof should have a serviceable life in excess of 30 years. I know we sent this information around to the council, but just for the public's update, all 3 referendum items passed at last Tuesday's referendum. You'll see the 3 project items there listed, and all passed by pretty overwhelming margins, but particularly the Dodd Middle School roof, dramatically overwhelming at 81% approval, but happy to see all 3 projects approved. And then the last page, a number of upcoming town council meetings, including this week. I know it's very busy with Planning and Zoning Commission joint meeting tomorrow on the POCD, but followed by 2 planning committee meetings on Thursday, one at 6 p.m., one at 7 p.m., joint with the Board of Ed at 7 p.m. And a few other committee meetings to follow. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Kimball. Questions for the town manager, Mr. Jinks?
I don't know, question, I just want to say, and first of all, about the town website, speaking of kind of marking the moment, it's been a frustration for the town and, you know, for the community in terms of, you know, just accessing basic information for a long time. And it's been a priority of this council to have a new website built. So I appreciate personally that this has happened so quickly, this version. So looking forward to that. Also, as far as Mixville goes, I've been out there a few times recently, so compliments to the Public Works for, first of all, the new sidewalks in the parking lot. They did a great job of that, and noticed the rink is coming along. But if anyone ever goes to Mixville, it's about as dry as it's ever been, so you could actually walk around the whole pond and not get your feet wet, which is very unusual. So it's a good time to go out to Mixville and enjoy a walk.
Mr. Velber?
Just a quick question. So speaking of that, the rink, how does that get filled? Is there a water source there, or do you bring like a truck in with tank water or something like that?
It's a good question.
Or just pond water?
Yeah.
Just bring the pond water.
A couple of different options. Yeah, I think, probably going to be bringing in water. It's also possible, depending on when you've capped the drains and the amount of rain you may get before, if you time it right, you may be able to get some natural filling. Because, again, as designed, because of that clay surface underneath, it's designed to retain water when those drains are capped. So I think, as I said before, this will be a little bit of an experimental year with how we work it through. You know, you don't need a very, I'm the guy from Texas, there's not an ice rink expert here.
Yeah.
But I'm assured you don't need a very deep amount of water in order to, you know, form the ice surface. But again, we're going to be varying that, obviously, with the ground temperature and everything else. It's going to really determine how successful it is. But, you know, we're also cognizant of the fact, and we've discussed this before, if we see fit, and depending on the cost down the line, you know, we do have an eye to possible supplemental refrigeration in the future. Again, that would come with a cost. But if we really find that we're only getting a few serviceable days or weeks out of it, which we hope is not the case, you know, we've talked about since the beginning the possibility of adding refrigeration that might make it usable for 3 months at a time. But this, you know, has been part of the council's vision for making Mixville as our premier and primary passive recreation facility, coupled with the sledding hill, really a winter wonderland there. Certainly a safer place to go ice skating than on the pond, which many times is not safe anymore, but obviously much safer even if it was questionable temperatures on this new rink where there's no risk of falling through. So we're really excited, and we've seen this work well in some other communities, but again, it's going to be dependent on how cold our winters are to maintain.
And where does the Zamboni get housed?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have seen, actually, we've been looking at some ice resurfacers
that are actually attached behind just a John Deere tractor, almost a riding lawnmower style. Very popular in Canada.
Oh, who knew?
And we've looked at some options that are, $3,000-$4,000 attachments to a tractor, but for this purpose, much cheaper than buying a Zamboni.
Right,
And
'cause I know
think
was
something that
one
would just
year-
keep it smooth. Yeah, go ahead.
One year, I mean, one year when we had it at Bartlett, one of the problems that I think found was that as it thaws and then refreezes, sometimes with wind, it gets bumpy and, so wasn't sure if there's some, I mean, obviously it's better than nothing, but just curious if there's some way to, if there's some plan on maintaining that ice, so.
Absolutely, yeah, we're certainly cognizant of that experience with the temporary rink, and certainly open to different solutions that we try to maintain it as safe and usable for as many days as possible.
Well, thank you to Public Works for putting this together. I think that it's going to be a great addition, so thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Walsh.
Yeah, I thought we were going to send Dave out there with some hot water and a shovel, but
I'm ready.
That is one of our possibilities.
A big wheel, a bucket, and a towel.
I just wanted to also mention, because I follow them on Facebook, the disc golf people the volunteers are working very hard on getting that whole course set up, and I want to really give my appreciation to all the volunteers who are working on that project. I actually think it's going to be a big draw for a lot of people, and I think, again, we're going to have to start thinking about figuring out where everybody's going to be parking between pickleball and disc golf, but if that's our worst problem, then it's not so bad. But I just wanted to make sure that I tell the volunteers that we truly appreciate all the time, because otherwise we'd be paying for all that work to be done ourselves, and it would have cost us a lot more for that project, and I don't think we would have ever gotten it off the ground. So thank you to those guys too. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? I'll add a quick one of my own. As part of Mr. Martelli's report, he talks about the ribbon cuttings at Il Gusto and Amy's Cakes. Several of us in the room tonight had an opportunity to attend the one at Il Gusto, and we highly recommend it. I had the opportunity to not only attend but sample some of Amy's cakes, and found them to be delicious as well. So it's great to see these new businesses in town. We welcome them, and we hope they have a long, successful stay here in our community. With that, we will move to reports of committees of the council. Item 10, starting with chairman's reports. To my left, Mr. Wolf.
Nothing to report, sir.
Ms. Allard?
I have nothing to report.
Mr. Jenks? And Ms. Pearson?
Sustainability Committee met on October 21st. Doolittle did roll out their composting program, and so Chapman rolled out their program last fall. It's been very, very successful. We are using the NEF funds. These are the NIP bottle funds to fund these programs in our schools. And again, Doolittle rolled theirs out to great success, and so we thank Erica Biaghetti from the schools, Vincent Messianis, and Jeff Solon for all their support of those efforts. And again, for those of you in attendance who may not be familiar with this is a food waste diversion program, and so students in the school, there are school students who are champions, and they help to educate students in the schools about the importance of food waste diversion, and this basically reduces our costs in terms of waste. Right now, we are shipping much of our waste in the state of Connecticut out of the state of Connecticut because landfills in the state of Connecticut have been closed. And so in educating our children and helping to reduce costs in our schools, we are contributing to the betterment of our community. Connected to that, I see we have some Boulder Knoll folks in the room here. Boulder Knoll also presented at the Sustainability Committee meeting on the 21st. They were proposing actually to create a community site at Boulder Knoll Farm where individuals and small businesses in Cheshire could potentially compost their waste. So for folks who are interested in composting but who can't compost or prefer not to compost at home, at least Boulder Knoll Farm will provide a location where individuals can bring their waste. They've also been, Boulder Knoll Farm folks have been in charge or in communication with owners of coffee shops in town and with Blender Bar. And there's a second site for Blender Bar coming into the North End development. These are businesses that are interested in potentially dropping off their waste at Boulder Knoll Farm if we should approve this. And so they were requesting some money from our NEF funds potentially. We were talking about how we might assist them in terms of funding one-time costs for a community compost pilot site in town. And we also met Ray Harris, who is our new Assistant Deputy of Department of Public Works. What is it, the title exactly?
Deputy Director of.
Deputy Director of Public Works. Ray Harris has a background in sustainability, so he visited our sustainability team. I also met him through our Sustainable CT team. Our Sustainable CT team did meet. I know this is not a town committee, but we met. Members of that team consist of Karen Schnitzer, former town councilor David Borowy, and Peter Prohaska. So we met with Ray Harris, and he will be working with our Sustainable CT team on certification with Sustainable CT. And that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Pearson. Item 10AI is the referral of draft public gathering permit to the Parks and Recreation Commission for feedback. Thanks to John Gawlak and the Park and Rec Commission team for taking a look at that and offering their comments for us. There is nothing under 10B miscellaneous. Brings us to item number 11, appointments, starting with A, liaison reports. And again, to my left, Mr. Wolf.
The only thing I have to report out of the Historic District Commission, the property, I don't have the exact address in front of me here, opposite Cheshire Coffee, the old Foot House was sold. It was unoccupied for many years, was previously a bank. It has been purchased by Bartlett and Grippy attorneys. They're going to be housing, I'm not sure exactly how many people in there, but a full boat of attorneys. They've spent a considerable amount of money and time painting and renovating, and I just want to give a shout out to them for doing the hard work and keeping a very historic and prominent building in town intact and around for many more years. So I just want to give them props for that.
Ms. Allard?
So there's a reason Michelle Pecorello received her award. She is an amazing leader of the Youth and Human Services Department, and the services that she provides to the town are just so robust. It's impossible to cover all of them, but they did meet recently, and I will do my best to go over the things that Sean did not cover. Like I said, I cannot possibly go over all of it, but with respect to the Cheshire Public Library in October, just wanted to highlight the fact that they held 88 programs with 1,987 attendees. And then what's coming up for the Cheshire Public Library, they're starting their concert series, which is starting with the first concert on Saturday, November 16th from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. And they are featuring a solo cellist. The Senior Center will be participating in a wellness fair at Elam Park. They are also offering senior RAD and safety prescription drug drop-off programs, grief bereavement programs as well. So for more information, contact the Senior Center. Also, there is a Medicare open enrollment assistance available to anybody who wanted assistance with that. Let's see, the Community YMCA is going to be hosting a mobile blood drive on December 20th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. You can contact the Cheshire YMCA for more information. Okay. I mentioned that as well. Oh, energy assistance program applications are still being taken. I'm not exactly so sure who you would need to contact for that. You can either contact Michelle Pecorello or myself as well. I'll be happy to get the information and forward it to you. With respect to the Park and Recreation Department, winter registration is going to begin December 1st. And let's see, Human Services is going to be hosting another showing of the Screenagers Under the Influence at Dodd, which is actually tomorrow, Wednesday, November 13th at 6:30 p.m. The Youth and Human Services Committee voted to change the schedule of their meetings to every other month. Their next meeting is going to be on Wednesday, January 8th. And that is it for the Youth and Human Services Committee. The Public Safety Commission did not meet in October, but we will be meeting on Thursday.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Jinks?
Dina, you're a way better liaison of Youth and Human Services than I ever was, so congratulations on that. I'm liaison for economic development, which that updates in our packets. And wastewater treatment, I don't have a report, but I'll try and do better next time.
Ms. Pearson?
Parks and Rec met last week. As Councilor Walsh mentioned, the disc golf is underway, the course is underway. I had the opportunity to talk with a student at Central, actually, who was sharing with me that he was excited and had heard about the incoming Cheshire disc golf course and wondered when it was going to be completed.
Nice.
So to your point, I think we're going to have to think about parking with that disc golf course. But yes, thank you to the volunteers. They're amazing, and they're known to be a very avid group, dedicated group that has a reputation for continuing to maintain these courses once they are developed. In addition, there's a very avid volunteer group working with NEMBA at the Yankee Expressway property. Right now, soil tests, I guess, are in process in terms of figuring out a course for the NEMBA course on the Yankee Expressway property. And Parks and Rec commissioners were talking about memorial benches at Bartland Park. They've begun to identify some locations where benches may be purchased for commemoration. There are a number of these benches along the linear trail. We're running out of space on the linear trail. But Bartland Park may be a spot, and that's what they're working on next right now.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Believe it or not, I don't have a report from the beautification committee because I was unable to make the meeting, but I will make a double one the next meeting. But I do have a report, a good report from the Cheshire Housing Authority. They have received all the funding. All the funding is in place for Jack's Farm, and they hope to have a groundbreaking in the spring and start building the units that have been in the works for several years now. So I think that's a great. They had lost the funding at one point, but they were able to get it back. This group works hard to make sure that they can get funding anywhere they can, and they were able to get it. And I think it's going to be a great asset for this community. So.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Velleber?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick report from the library board. They continue to do great things over there. The library is very well run, and I think it's really shown in how well used the library is as a resource. So that's great. I just wanted to let you know that at the last meeting, they are adopting a new use of the library by minors policy, just as far as that, for minors under the age of 12 and ages 12 to 17, just as far as, being supervised or unsupervised. They want to make sure that that the kids stay safe and that they're not unsupervised. So there will be a new policy going into effect for minors under the age of 12 that they may not be left unsupervised, whereas minors between the age of 12 and 6 can be without a guardian provided they follow the policies.
Thank you. And Mr. Mylone?
No liaison reports.
Thank you, sir. Appointments, either Mr. Wolf or Mr. Velleber?
I have one. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With that, I would like to place the name of Joe Davis into nomination for the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission. This is a new appointment to fill the untimely and unfortunate passing of Earl Kurtz. His term of office will be present to January 31st of 2027, and he is a Republican.
Thank you, Mr. Velleber, and thank you, Mr. Wolf. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Brings us to item 12, the town attorney's report. Mr. DiAgostino, anything for?
Nothing to report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Thank you. Brings us to item 13, council communications, letters to the council. Anyone? Mr. Walsh?
Thank you. I received this letter. Members of the Town Council, during my long tenure as a member of the Board of Directors and President of Cheshire Interfaith Housing, I've had the opportunity to work very closely with Cheshire Human Services and Michelle Picarello. There is not a harder working, selfless, and dedicated employee in the town of Cheshire. We are an advocate for Michelle to be designated as a first responder in the town of Cheshire. Signed, Mike Votto, President, Cheshire Interfaith Housing.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Thank you, Mr. Votto. We couldn't agree with you more. Anyone else? Letters to the council? Seeing none. Move to miscellaneous. There is none, which brings us to items for executive session. We have labor negotiations and pending litigation on tap. So I will call for a motion to go into executive session to include, is Mr.
Just-
Jascott?
No, just the police chief, Arnett, town attorney, myself.
Okay, so Chief Drife, Ms. Talbot, Ms. Shepherd, Mr. DiAgostino, and the dais. Thank you, Mr. Walsh, a second. Thank you, Mr. Veliber. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. We are now in executive session. Thank you all for attending. Thank you all for staying this evening.